It started quietly. No explosions, no wars, no dramatic moments, just a strange signal that appeared one morning across half the galaxy. The year was 2647. Ships from hundreds of civilizations were scattered across the stars. Miners, traders, explorers, scientists. Each one was busy with its own work, chasing discoveries and profits. And then, without warning, every scanner, satellite, and relay station within 10 light-years of Sol detected the same signal. At first, no one understood it. The message came, in dozens of languages at once, translated automatically by whatever system heard it. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a cry for help. It was calm, mechanical, and strangely confident, the kind of voice that sounded like it didn't need to shout to be obeyed. Entry into Sol system is forbidden. Planet Earth designated dead zone, level Omega. Do not approach. This message will repeat. That was all. Just those few lines repeating every 3 minutes. No signature, no coordinates, though everyone knew what the Sol system was. The home of humans. A species that hadn't been heard from in centuries. At first, most people didn't take it seriously. Signals drift all the time in space. Old satellites echo strange transmissions, relics of dead civilizations. Maybe it was just one of those, the last whisper of humanity's old machines. But then something odd happened. The message wasn't fading. It wasn't random static. It was active, pulsing in perfect rhythm, and powered by a source stronger than anything local. Someone, or something, was still maintaining it. On the communications deck of a cargo ship near the Orion Spur, a technician stared at the readouts. He ran checks again and again, thinking his equipment was broken, but the result was always the same. The transmission wasn't coming from an old satellite orbiting a dead planet. It was coming from deep within the Sol system itself. It was live. Soon more ships confirmed it. Explorers near Proxima Centauri picked it up clearly. Traders in the Tau Ceti routes heard it too. The same exact words, the same perfect tone, echoing through the void. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from over 100 species attended, each one trying to understand the same question. Who could have sent this? Humanity had disappeared hundreds of years ago. Their colonies were silent. Their trade routes were abandoned. Even their great cities, once bright on 1,000 worlds, had turned to dust. So who was guarding their home planet now? One of the delegates, an old reptilian scholar known for his calm logic, said quietly, "It may be an automated defense system, perhaps left behind to scare off intruders." But another, a thin-feathered diplomat from the eastern sectors, shook her head. Automated systems decay. They fail. Yet this one has been running for centuries. Whatever built it, knew it would last. The chamber went silent. No one wanted to admit what they were thinking, that maybe, just maybe, humanity hadn't vanished at all. Across the galaxy, stories about humans had turned into legends. Some called them the children of fire. Others, the builders of storms. They were remembered for their courage, but also their unpredictability. They made allies easily, but enemies even faster. Many races still remembered the last time they went to war with humans. Humanity didn't fight for power or territory. They fought like people defending a home even when far from it. They were emotional, creative, sometimes reckless, but when united, nothing could stop them. And then one day they just stopped answering. No battles, no warnings, just silence. Now that silence had returned, but it was no longer peaceful. It felt deliberate. The message didn't threaten anyone. It didn't need to. It simply said, "Don't come." And every instinct in every being who heard it whispered the same thing. Listen to that warning. Still, curiosity is a dangerous thing. Within weeks, dozens of research fleets started scanning the Sol system from a distance. They used long-range sensors to study the area around Earth. What they found was impossible. The planet looked alive. Despite being isolated for centuries, Earth's surface was still green and blue. Forests had grown thicker. Oceans shone bright. The atmosphere was clean, almost perfectly balanced. It didn't look like a ruined homeworld. It looked better than before. Could humans still be there? one scientist asked during a broadcasted council meeting, or something they left behind. No one could survive isolation that long, another replied. It must be automated drones maintaining the surface. But the first scientist frowned. Then why is the planet pulsing with organic signals? Why do we detect heat sources moving? Under the ground? The question hung in the air like a shadow. Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, whispers spread faster than facts ever could. Traders told stories in dim-lit stations, stories about ships that wandered too close to Earth and were never heard from again. A scout near Jupiter's orbit claimed his instruments picked up lights like cities glowing faintly beneath the clouds of Earth. He tried to record it, but his systems shut down. The footage was corrupted, replaced by static. And then that same calm voice playing over it. Entry into Sol system is forbidden. Do not approach. No one knew if he was lying or not. But his ship disappeared 2 days later. The council ruled it an equipment malfunction, but everyone knew better. Out there, in the quiet between the stars, rumors mean more than reports. Even the pirate fleets known for scavenging ruins and wrecks refused to go near Earth. Not because they were scared of ghosts, but because, as one of them said, you can steal from the dead. But humans never die quiet. By now, every major civilization had tried to trace the signal's source. It wasn't coming from any single location. Instead, it seemed to exist everywhere inside the system, bouncing from orbit to orbit, like it was alive. Some experts claimed it was quantum-based communication, something far beyond known technology. Others said it wasn't technology at all, but a consciousness. One philosopher from the Andaran sector gave a chilling speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. Maybe humanity learned something the rest of us didn't. Maybe they realized the price of expansion, of endless wars, of touching every star, and maybe they chose to step back, to protect what they loved most. Not by conquering the galaxy, but by disappearing from it. The idea spread like wildfire. Some found it poetic, others found it terrifying. A few even began worshipping Earth as sacred ground, a symbol of a species that had transcended violence. The Galactic Council tried to calm the growing obsession, but it was too late. Half the galaxy was now talking about Earth again. Artists painted it. Poets wrote verses about the sleeping world. Scientists petitioned for expeditions. And, deep down, almost everyone wanted to know the same thing. What really happened to humans? On a lonely outpost near the edge of known space, a small exploration crew decided they couldn't wait for permission. Their captain, driven by curiosity more than greed, turned toward Sul. The others protested, warning of the dead zone. But he only smiled and said, "If the message is real, it means something is still there, and I want to see it." They disappeared before their first report could reach anyone. Weeks passed, then months. No signal, no debris, nothing. But one day, a ship near Saturn's orbit picked up a faint echo on a forgotten frequency, a short burst of static followed by a single human word: home. After that, the transmissions stopped completely. Even the warning message grew faint, as if the system itself had gone silent again. For a while, it seemed like the galaxy could finally forget. But deep inside, no one really did. Every civilization that ever fought humans, traded with them, or feared them, could still feel something lingering. A kind of presence that didn't need to be seen to be felt. They didn't know if humanity was hiding, sleeping, or watching. But one thing was certain. The message wasn't just a warning. It was a line drawn in the stars. And it said, without anger, without pride, just truth. This is our home. Stay away. It had been decades since the first warning signal from Earth reached the galaxy. For many, the message had become a mystery, a legend whispered in quiet corners of starports and trading hubs. But for a few, curiosity refused to die. They wanted to know what humans had left behind and why the planet had been declared untouchable. The search began quietly. Scholars, historians, and explorers scoured old records, trying to piece together the story of humanity. They dug into archives that had survived wars, natural disasters, and the slow decay of time. Some of these records were digital, stored in old networks that hummed faintly in abandoned space stations. Others were physical, fragile papers or etched stones kept in museums on distant worlds. What they found was both amazing and confusing. Humanity, it seemed, had been unlike any other species in the galaxy. They had risen quickly from a single planet, a small world filled with oceans and forests to spread across the stars. They built cities in space, colonies on distant planets, and even ships capable of traveling faster than light. But they were not always peaceful. Humans fought wars, yes, but they also created art, music, literature, and technology that no one else could match. The record showed a species that lived fully in the moment, but also planned for the centuries to come. They were determined, stubborn, and creative. They took risks that other species considered too dangerous, and somehow they had survived disasters that could have wiped them out. What puzzled the scholars the most was not what humans had done, but what they had chosen to leave behind. According to the surviving records, humans had predicted that one day they would face enemies they could not fight openly. They had built systems on Earth and on distant colonies to protect themselves, systems that would continue working long after humans themselves had disappeared. Some historians believe that the humans had realized that being everywhere in the galaxy at once made them vulnerable. Their reach was too wide, their enemies too many, and so they decided to withdraw to protect their home, and to leave the rest of the galaxy to its own devices. One historian, speaking during a virtual lecture broadcast across multiple star systems, said, "Humans understood something that others do not. They understood that survival sometimes requires restraint. They could have tried to control everything, but instead they left a message. Do not come here." It is a warning, but also a test of patience and respect. The lecture sparked more questions than answers. What had humans seen that convinced them to step back? What dangers had they faced that other species had not? And most importantly, where had they gone? Some of the records hinted at colonies and distant systems, but even these were difficult to confirm. Many human settlements had gone silent long before Earth became off-limits. Satellites that once transmitted data were now dark. Ships that once traveled between stars vanished without a trace. The galaxy had assumed humanity was gone, or at least greatly reduced. Yet the warning from Earth suggested otherwise. Explorers tried to piece together patterns from the data they had. They looked at old maps of human colonies, trade routes, and military outposts. They studied communications, both public and private, trying to understand what had led humanity to make such a final decision. What emerged was a picture of a species that valued its home above all else. They were powerful, yes, but they also understood limits. They knew that the galaxy was full of dangers beyond their ability to control, and perhaps most importantly, they wanted to protect something sacred, their planet, their home. As scholars continued their research, rumors began to spread among the explorers. Some claimed that traces of human technology still existed, hidden deep under the surface of distant worlds. Others spoke of secret vaults on Earth itself, places untouched for centuries holding knowledge and machines beyond comprehension. Some even suggested that humans had developed technology that allowed them to hide themselves entirely from detection, moving silently among the stars without leaving any trace. While most of this could not be verified, the stories captured the imagination of many. Artists painted images of hidden human cities glowing softly under forests and oceans. Writers created tales of human ships moving silently between galaxies, watching and waiting. Musicians composed pieces inspired by the mystery of a civilization that had once ruled the stars and then vanished. In the meantime, scientific teams tried to make sense of the warning message itself. They studied the energy pattern of the broadcast, analyzing its frequency, amplitude, and repetition. It was unlike anything else in the galaxy. It seemed self-sustaining, able to travel great distances without fading. Some suggested it was powered by technology beyond current understanding, perhaps even using principles of physics that humans alone had mastered. A few daring explorers proposed missions to approach Earth and observe from a safe distance. They designed unmanned probes hoping to collect data without violating the Dead Zone protocol. The Council of Systems debated these proposals for years, balancing curiosity against the warnings. Many feared that any intrusion could provoke consequences they could not anticipate. After all, if humans had gone to such lengths to protect their world, the results of breaking that protection might be severe. Despite the caution, The desire to know was too strong. Small teams of scientists and engineers secretly prepared expeditions. They studied human history, trying to learn from every record available. They studied old languages, social structures, and technology. The more they learned, the more they realized how unique humans were. They were not just strong or smart, they were resilient, adaptable, and unpredictable. No species had ever matched them in creativity or determination. The records also revealed something else. Humans valued life in a way other species did not. They had survived wars, natural disasters, and political collapse, yet they had preserved beauty, culture, and knowledge. They understood that power alone was not enough. They needed wisdom, patience, and courage. One researcher summed it up during a public broadcast. Humans did not vanish because they were weak. They vanished because they were wise. They understood that the galaxy is not theirs to control, and in stepping back they preserved what matters most, their home, their legacy, and perhaps themselves. This idea spread across the galaxy like fire. Humans were no longer just a story from the past, they became a symbol. For some they were an example of strength. For others a lesson in caution. And for many they were a mystery that would never be solved. Every discovery, every record, every legend pointed to the same conclusion. Earth had been declared off-limits for a reason. And that reason was not simply to scare off intruders. It was a choice. Humans had chosen to protect something precious, and they had done it in a way that few others could even imagine. As decades passed, the search for knowledge about humans became a mission in itself. Libraries, both digital and physical, collected every fragment of information. Scholars debated, philosophers speculated, and explorers waited for the chance to learn more. Some hoped to contact humans directly. Others were content to study their legacy from afar. But no matter how much information was gathered, the feeling of mystery remained. Humans had created a world that was beautiful, vibrant, and alive. And then they had chosen to step back. They had left a warning, yes, but also a challenge, to respect what they had preserved. And so the galaxy waited. Scientists continued their research. Explorers continued their observations, and the story of humans, of their rise, their wisdom, and their disappearance, continued to grow in importance. Humans had left their mark not through conquest or domination, but through a quiet, deliberate choice that commanded respect. Every record found, every artifact studied, and every legend told only reinforced the truth. Humans were extraordinary, not just because of their strength or technology, but because of their understanding of limits. They had known when to fight, when to build, and when to step away. The galaxy had learned to remember them not as conquerors or rulers, but as guardians of their own world, and Earth, untouched and alive, remained the symbol of that wisdom. Even after centuries, even after countless species had studied and speculated, the question remained: were humans really gone, or were they simply waiting, observing quietly from the shadows, ensuring that their home remained protected? No one could say for certain. But one thing was clear: humanity had left a legacy that would be remembered for all time. A legacy not written in war or fear, but in the careful, deliberate act of stepping back to protect what mattered most. And for those who studied it, that legacy was more powerful than any weapon, more lasting than any empire, and more mysterious than any star in the sky. Humans had vanished. Yes, but their story had only begun to be understood. And Earth, the heart of that story, remained a living testament to their choices, their wisdom, and the power of restraint. By the time the legends about Earth had spread, curiosity had become impossible to resist. For centuries, explorers had listened to stories about humans, their rise, their wisdom, their disappearance, and now, a small group decided they could wait no longer. They were not a fleet of warships or a coalition of empires. They were scientists, explorers, and engineers united by curiosity, driven by a desire to see the truth for themselves. Every one of them had grown up on stories of humanity's power, their creativity, and their mysterious vanishing. They had studied the archives, read the old logs, and pieced together what history had left behind. But nothing prepared them for what it meant to finally go toward Earth. The journey began quietly. They launched from a remote station at the edge of a star system hundreds of light years from Sol. Their ship was small, designed for speed and observation rather than combat. They called it the Seeker's Flame. It carried no weapons, only sensors, recording equipment, and the minds of those brave enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to challenge the unknown. For months, they traveled through the darkness of space, guided by stars and ancient human records. Along the way, they discussed what they might find. Some hoped to find signs of humans still living. Others thought Earth might be a tomb, empty and silent. Yet all of them knew deep down that this mission would change everything they thought they knew about humanity. As they approached the Sol system, tension filled the ship. It was the first time any human-built system had been approached since the warning had been issued centuries ago. The words from the signal repeated in their minds. Entry into Sol system is forbidden. Do not approach. No one spoke much about it. The silence of the void was enough to make anyone nervous. Yet despite the unease, every crew member felt the pull of discovery. Curiosity outweighed fear. When the first sensors scanned Earth, the crew was stunned. The planet looked alive, more vibrant than expected. Vast forests covered regions that had once been cities. Oceans sparkled, reflecting the light of the distant sun. The atmosphere was perfectly balanced. There were no signs of war, no ruins, nothing that suggested a civilization had left in a hurry. It was as if humans had decided to step back and let the planet heal. But as they watched, the readings from their instruments began to show something strange. Heat signatures moved beneath the surface, subtle, rhythmic patterns. Energy sources flickered in locations that had no visible buildings. The planet was not empty. Something or someone was active. The captain of the Seeker's Flame studied the data in silence. Every experienced explorer knew that venturing into forbidden zones was dangerous. There were no laws to protect them here, no council to answer to, only the unknown. Yet the allure of discovery was too strong. Over the next few days, the crew circled Earth in orbit, scanning every region. They were careful, keeping a respectful distance, yet each new discovery increased their awe. Ancient cities that had vanished from old records were still intact beneath the forests, preserved as though humans had planned for them to remain untouched. Roads, towers, and strange structures appeared intermittently in the data, hinting at technology beyond what any other species could produce. Then, the unexplainable began. Sensors occasionally picked up signals, soft pulses that didn't match any natural pattern. They seemed deliberate, like messages, but they could not be decoded. The signals pulsed in ways that suggested intelligence. Sometimes they felt almost like a heartbeat. One engineer examining the readings said quietly, "It's as if the planet itself is alive." No one laughed. The crew had spent their lives exploring strange worlds. They had seen life in countless forms, but nothing like this. The readings were subtle but undeniable. The planet was not abandoned. Earth had been prepared, maintained, and watched over perhaps for centuries. The more the crew observed, the more they began to notice small changes. Shadows shifted on the surface, patterns in the forests that were too regular to be natural. Lights flickered in underground structures when there was no sun. Even at night, the sensors detected faint movements, careful and deliberate, as though someone or something was monitoring the visitors. Some crew members began to feel uneasy. Fear, however, was different from panic. It was quiet, an awareness that the unknown could be more dangerous than any enemy they had faced. And yet, even with the fear, no one wanted to leave. The captain held a meeting with the crew. "We came here to learn," the captain said, voice steady. "We are not here to take, to fight, or to interfere. If humans, or whatever is here, choose to reveal themselves, we will observe respectfully. But if they wish us to leave, we must be ready to obey." For hours, the crew debated what to do. Some argued that probing deeper could provoke a response. Others felt they could not leave without understanding the truth. Eventually, they reached a compromise. They would continue scanning and recording, maintaining a safe distance and avoid any action that might alert Earth to their presence. The first encounter came unexpectedly. A small probe, undetectable by conventional sensors, passed near their ship. It moved with precision and intelligence, almost as if studying the visitors. The crew watched in silence, unsure whether to react. The probe vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only faint traces in the data. No one spoke for hours. The incident confirmed what they had suspected. Humans, or something left behind by humans, were watching. The planet was not empty. Earth was alive with purpose. The crew continued to orbit, collecting images, mapping energy sources, and recording every signal. Nights were long and silent. Days were tense and filled with anticipation. Every discovery seemed to raise more questions than answers. Yet amid the uncertainty, there was a growing respect for the intelligence that had prepared Earth for their arrival. One scientist said, "It's not just a planet. It's a message." Indeed, Earth itself seemed to communicate through its design, its preserved structures, and the subtle signals that pulsed beneath the surface. It was a warning, a lesson, and an invitation all at once. The crew realized they were not just observing history. They were witnessing the careful work of a species that had mastered patience, planning, and strategy on a scale no other civilization could match. As days turned into weeks, the crew noticed subtle patterns in the signals. Faint pulses corresponded to natural phenomena on the planet: storms, ocean tides, and volcanic activity. It was as if the planet itself was being monitored and maintained by an unseen hand. The sophistication of the system left the crew in awe. One evening, as the ship passed over a dense forest, a sudden flash of light appeared on the surface. It was brief, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakably deliberate. The crew held their breath, waiting for a response, for any sign of human activity. Nothing happened, but the flash left a lasting impression. Earth was awake, aware, and ready. The experience changed the crew. They began to understand why humans had chosen to protect their world rather than abandon it completely. They understood that the warning message was not a threat, it was a safeguard. Humanity had left their home not to disappear entirely, but to preserve it, and to teach others the value of restraint, respect, and observation. No one knew what would happen next. The crew debated whether to leave quietly, to return to the galaxy with their findings, or to continue observing in secret. Each decision carried risk. Each possibility promised discovery. In the end, they decided that observation and respect were their guiding principles. They would remain distant, careful, and humble, learning what they could without interfering. As the Seeker's flame continued its orbit around Earth, the crew realized that this mission was unlike any other. They were not explorers discovering a new planet for resources or conquest. They were witnesses to the wisdom and foresight of a civilization that had understood the power of restraint. And as they recorded their findings, they knew one thing for certain: Earth was not abandoned. Humans, or whatever guardians they had left behind, were watching, waiting, and ensuring that their home remained untouched. The warning had been real, and the planet was alive with purpose. For the crew of the Seeker's Flame, the journey had only just begun. They had entered the Forbidden Zone, and in doing so they had glimpsed the legacy of humanity. It was a legacy of intelligence, patience, and careful planning. It was a reminder that power alone was not enough, and that sometimes the greatest strength lay in knowing when to step back. As the ship continued its orbit, scanning, observing, and recording, the crew could not help but feel humbled. They were visitors in a world that had been prepared for them long before they arrived. And they knew that whatever happened next, Earth had already taught them its first lesson: respect what is sacred, and never underestimate the wisdom of those who came before. As the Seeker's Flame continued to orbit Earth, the atmosphere on the ship changed. What had started as curiosity now turned into a mix of awe and tension. Every sensor reading, every flicker of light on the planet seemed to carry a message. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the crew could feel it. Earth was not just a planet. They were slowly realizing that it was alive in a way they had never experienced before. The first unmistakable sign came during a routine scan of a vast forest near what had once been one of humanity's largest cities. Sensors detected sudden bursts of energy deep beneath the surface. The readings were unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Regular, precise, and clearly intelligent. The pulses seemed to move in patterns, almost like someone was arranging them deliberately, as if speaking in a code too advanced for them to decipher. At first, the crew thought it might be a malfunction in their instruments, but as they double-checked the readings, it became clear. Nothing on the ship could have produced these signals. They were coming from Earth itself. The planet, it seemed, was reacting to their presence. For hours, the ship hovered silently above the forest, recording everything. The usual hum of machinery felt insignificant compared to the subtle, powerful pulse coming from below. Then, without warning, the lights across the forest floor began to glow. Tiny, faint illuminations appeared, synchronized perfectly, creating patterns that shifted slowly across the trees. They looked almost like the city lights humans had left behind, but they were moving, alive and purposeful. The crew stared in silence. No one dared speak at first. It was as if the planet itself had taken a deep breath and was now watching them back. The air on the ship felt heavier, charged with anticipation. For the first time, they realized they were not just observers, they were being observed. One scientist, finally breaking the silence, whispered, "It's like the planet knows we're here, like it's alive and aware of us." Others nodded quietly, too focused on the readings to respond in words. They watched as the patterns shifted and rearranged themselves, moving with precision, almost as if communicating without sound. The crew's excitement grew, but so did their unease. They were beginning to understand that Earth's guardians, whatever or whoever they were still very much active. As the days passed, strange things continued to happen. Sensors picked up faint whispers, voices in a language that none of the crew could recognize. They were not loud, just soft, almost like wind through the trees. But they carried a weight that made everyone uneasy. At times it felt like the voices were speaking directly to them, warning them to stay still, to move carefully, to observe without interfering. One night, while the crew was reviewing data, a sudden flash of light erupted from deep under the planet's surface. The ship shook slightly, though there was no sign of an explosion. The crew rushed to the viewing screens, trying to understand what had caused it. Slowly, a pattern emerged, a series of coordinated flashes forming shapes that resembled geometric symbols, precise and intentional. The realization hit them all at once. These were not random signals. Earth itself was alive with purpose, and it was using the planet's natural and artificial systems to communicate. The crew had expected to find a silent world, perhaps preserved by automated drones. They had not expected a living, intelligent response. As tension grew, the crew noticed other subtle signs of activity. Shadows shifted on the surface, moving with a precision that no natural phenomenon could explain. Faint structures appeared and disappeared on scans, as if Earth's guardians were testing their observers. Even the atmosphere seemed to hum differently in certain regions, as if the planet was adjusting to their presence. The crew became more cautious. Every step had to be measured, every scan carefully timed. They began to understand why humanity had chosen to protect Earth so fiercely. It wasn't just a warning. It was a living, breathing system designed to ensure that no one intruded recklessly. The planet itself was the guardian. Despite the unease, fascination grew stronger. The crew could not tear their eyes away from the patterns, the pulses, the shifting lights. It was mesmerizing, hypnotic even. The more they observed, the more they realized that Earth was not just alive, it was intelligent. It was aware of them, and it was responding in subtle, deliberate ways. Then came the first encounter that could not be ignored. A massive structure, previously invisible on scans, began to rise from beneath the surface. It was enormous, taller than any human city tower, and its design was unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Geometric, precise, and shimmering with a faint glow, it seemed to respond to the ship's presence. Sensors could barely penetrate its walls, but it emitted energy readings far beyond the ship's capacity to measure. The crew watched in stunned silence. No one moved. The structure rose slowly, as if acknowledging their observation. It was a moment of pure awe, the kind of moment that would be remembered for generations. For the first time, the crew realized that Earth's guardians were not just passive observers. They were active, aware, and fully capable of protecting the planet. Over the next few days, more phenomena occurred. Energy pulses moved across the surface in patterns that resembled communication, and new structures emerged from the ground, rising and sinking as if alive. Occasionally, sensors detected movement deep beneath the forests and oceans. It was subtle but unmistakable. Something large, intelligent, and deliberate was moving below the surface. Fear and excitement intertwined. The crew knew they were witnessing something extraordinary, yet they could not shake the awareness that they were intruding on a system far beyond their understanding. They had hoped to observe quietly, to record data and return home with knowledge. Now they understood that their presence was being acknowledged and perhaps judged. One engineer remarked quietly, "It's like the planet itself is saying, 'I see you. I know you're here, and I am ready.'" The captain nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. They had entered forbidden space not as conquerors but as witnesses. Every choice mattered. Every action could trigger a response they could not predict. And yet, the opportunity to observe, to learn, was unprecedented. As the crew continued their mission, they noticed a pattern in the phenomena. The pulses, the flashes, the shifting structures. All of them seemed to follow a rhythm tied to natural cycles, tides, storms, and even the rotation of the planet itself. Earth was alive not just with technology, but with a deep connection to its own environment. It was a self-sustaining system, intelligent and resilient. The realization was profound. Humans, it seemed, had not abandoned their home. They had designed a system capable of maintaining life, intelligence, and protection long after they were gone. The planet itself was their legacy, a testament to foresight, patience, and planning on a scale no other species could comprehend. For the crew of the Seeker's Flame, the experience was transformative. They had come expecting to observe a silent, preserved world. Instead, they found a living, intelligent system that challenged their understanding of life, intelligence, and responsibility. Every scan, every observation, brought new wonder and new respect. As the days turned into weeks, the crew realized that their mission was no longer just about exploration. It was about understanding. Earth was teaching them lessons in caution, respect, and observation. Humans had left a warning not through words alone, but through a living system that demanded awareness and humility from anyone who approached. The crew began to record every detail carefully, knowing that their observations would shape how the galaxy understood humanity. They documented the pulses, the structures, the movement beneath the surface, and the subtle signs of intelligence. Every moment was precious, a glimpse into a legacy that had endured centuries. And through it all, one thought remained clear. Earth was not just a planet. It was a guardian, a teacher, and a testament to the intelligence and foresight of humanity. Its message was unmistakable. The planet was alive, aware, and ready to protect itself if necessary. The crew understood that they were privileged to witness this. They were observers of something extraordinary, a system designed to endure and communicate across centuries. And as they continued to circle the planet, they realized that their role was simple but critical: to watch, to learn, and to respect the boundaries set by a civilization that had mastered the art of restraint. Earth had awakened in their presence, and in doing so, it had shown them a truth that would stay with them forever. Humans had not abandoned their world. They had transformed it into a living system of protection, intelligence, and legacy. And now, through their observations, the crew was beginning to understand the magnitude of what had been left behind. For the first time, they truly understood the warning. Earth was alive, aware, and not to be touched. It was a lesson in patience, respect, and the quiet power of a civilization that had risen to greatness and then chosen to step back, leaving their home untouched, yet fully alive and ready. The days passed slowly aboard the Seeker's Flame. Every observation, every scan of Earth revealed more mysteries than answers. The crew had expected to see ruins, or at most, automated systems left behind by a vanished civilization. Instead, they were witnessing signs of intelligence, life, and awareness that no one had imagined. The planet itself seemed alive, alert, and prepared for any intruder. It began with the subtle signals: small flashes of light on the surface, synchronized pulses, and energy readings that moved in deliberate patterns. At first, the crew tried to interpret them scientifically, using every tool at their disposal. They charted, recorded, and analyzed, but the patterns did not fit any known system, no code or algorithm from any civilization. The signals seemed almost conscious. One day, a new phenomenon occurred. A small probe emerged from beneath the surface, nearly invisible to the ship's sensors. It moved with deliberate precision, scanning the ship and its instruments as if assessing the crew themselves. The sight shocked everyone. No one had expected Earth's guardians to respond directly. The probe moved silently and quickly, and just as suddenly it disappeared back beneath the surface. The captain gathered the crew for a meeting. "We've crossed a line," the captain said quietly. "This is no longer just observation. Earth knows we are here. It is aware of our presence, and I believe it is communicating in its own way." A scientist leaned forward. "If that probe was intelligent, then everything we've observed, the pulses, the flashes, the structures, could be a network of guardians. Humans, or their technology, might still be controlling it from below. We are not alone." The words sank into the room like a weight. The crew realized they were witnessing something far greater than they had ever imagined. This was not just a planet. It was a system, alive with intelligence and purpose, designed to endure long after humanity itself might have disappeared. The next few days were tense. The crew observed more signals, some stronger, some weaker, all carefully coordinated. Occasionally, lights would pulse across vast regions of the planet, forming patterns that seemed to mirror constellations. The ship's instruments even detected faint energy readings in orbit, suggesting hidden satellites or platforms that were unseen but active. Earth was monitoring not just its surface, but space itself. Then one day a breakthrough occurred. The ship's long-range sensors picked up a transmission. Not a signal from the planet's surface, but a faint, coherent message in a language no one on the crew had ever encountered. The words could not be understood fully, but the tone was unmistakable, deliberate, calm, and aware. It felt like a greeting and at the same time a warning. The captain tried to respond, speaking into the open channel, even though they did not know if anyone or anything would hear them. "We come in peace," the captain said. "We mean no harm. We wish only to observe and learn." There was no immediate response, but the sensors picked up a sudden change in the planet's energy patterns. Pulses intensified and the lights on the surface grew brighter, forming a sweeping wave that moved across the continents. The crew watched in awe as the entire planet seemed to acknowledge their message. For the first time, it felt personal. The crew realized that Earth was not just reacting randomly, it was listening and it had understood. The following days were filled with careful observation. Every flash of light, every pulse of energy seemed to form a pattern, a response to their presence. The crew began to record everything meticulously, understanding that they were witnessing a civilization's legacy, preserved and alive, waiting to be recognized. Then came the moment no one could have anticipated. From deep beneath the surface, enormous structures began to rise. They were massive, far larger than anything humans had ever built on Earth's surface. Towers, platforms, and geometric formations appeared gradually, emerging from the forests, mountains, and oceans. Each structure pulsed with energy, and faint traces of movement suggested intelligent operation. The crew watched in stunned silence. These structures were not automated machines. They were alive with purpose, designed to interact with anyone who approached. It became clear that humans, or the intelligence they left behind, had built a system that could respond dynamically to threats or observers. Earth itself had become a living fortress. As the days passed, the crew's excitement mixed with apprehension. The phenomena were no longer subtle. They were deliberate, precise, and clearly meant to communicate a message. The planet was alive in a way that went beyond any technology the galaxy had seen. Every signal, every movement felt like a conversation across centuries. One scientist commented quietly, "We are being taught something." Humans left this world to be observed, to test patience and respect. Every signal, every structure, is a lesson in restraint and awareness. The crew realized that they had not just discovered a planet. They had entered a living system designed to endure, protect, and communicate. Humans had left a legacy not through conquest or domination, but through careful preparation, foresight, and intelligence. Then one morning, as the ship passed over an ancient human city buried beneath a forest, a new phenomenon occurred. Lights along the streets flickered in a pattern that resembled a map. The crew's instruments recorded the formations, and for the first time, they felt as though they were being guided, led by a presence that had watched them all along. The captain spoke, voice low but steady. "It's as if Earth is showing us where to look. There's a plan here, and we are part of it, not as intruders but as witnesses." The crew followed the signals, mapping out the patterns, and discovered something extraordinary. Beneath the city, in hidden chambers that had never been opened, were remnants of technology far beyond what the galaxy knew. Machinery hummed faintly, powered by energy that seemed to come from the planet itself. Sensors detected faint traces of human-like life support systems preserved perfectly. It became clear that humans had designed these systems to endure long after they were gone. They had left behind not ruins, but living machines, guardians, and messages encoded in the energy patterns of the planet itself. Earth was a classroom, a warning, and a testament to their intelligence. The crew understood that this was the final message. Humans had left their home untouched, not out of fear but out of foresight. They had created a system capable of teaching respect, patience, and observation to anyone who approached. The warning message was not a threat. It was an invitation to learn without causing harm. For the first time, the crew felt the full weight of humanity's wisdom. The centuries-old warning had not been idle. Earth was alive, aware, and prepared to protect itself if necessary. And now, through their observations, the crew had become part of that lesson. The captain made a final entry in the ship's logs. Earth is not abandoned. Humans have left a living system, a guardian, a message that will endure far longer than any empire or civilization. We are witnesses to something extraordinary. We are reminded that true strength lies not in conquest, but in foresight, patience, and respect. As the crew prepared to return to the galaxy, they knew that the knowledge they carried would change everything. Humanity had left behind more than a planet. They had left a legacy that demanded humility, caution, and understanding. Earth had proven that power and intelligence could be preserved without domination, and as they looked down one last time before leaving orbit, the lights across the planet shimmered in acknowledgement, a silent message from a civilization that had mastered the art of patience and foresight. Earth was alive, aware, and eternal, a testament to the wisdom of humans and their enduring legacy. The crew of the Seeker's Flame departed quietly, carrying with them the profound understanding that the galaxy had never truly known humanity. And somewhere beneath the forests, oceans, and mountains of Earth, the Guardians continued their silent watch, ensuring that the planet remained untouched, respected, and alive. The return transmission they would send back to the Council was simple but powerful. Earth is not dead. Humans are not gone. They are everywhere, and their legacy is eternal. Any who wish to approach must remember the lesson, respect the boundaries, and honor the intelligence that built this world. The journey back from Earth was quiet. The crew of the Seeker's Flame sat in thoughtful silence, each lost in reflection. They had gone to observe a planet, expecting ruins or signs of abandonment, yet what they had witnessed defied every expectation. Earth was alive, aware, and infinitely intelligent. They carried knowledge now, but also a deep sense of humility. Humanity's legacy was more profound than anyone could have imagined. For days, the ship sailed through the emptiness of space. The stars seemed brighter than ever, as though the galaxy itself acknowledged the significance of what they had seen. The crew did not speak much. Words felt inadequate to describe the awe, the respect, and the weight of understanding that now rested on their shoulders. Slowly, they began to document everything. Every pulse of energy, every subtle flash on Earth's surface, every rising structure, every signal that had seemed to communicate. Everything was recorded in detail. This was not a mission for fame or recognition. It was a mission to preserve truth. They knew that what they carried was a story the galaxy had to hear, but it also had to be respected. Earth was a lesson, not a conquest. The captain spoke once during a long observation session. We have seen something no one else has. Earth is alive. Humans may no longer walk its surface, but they are still here, in every pulse, every signal, every structure. Their legacy is not in conquest, but in restraint, patience, and intelligence. That is what we must share. The crew nodded quietly. They understood the importance of restraint now. They had glimpsed the depth of human foresight and realized that some things were meant to be protected, observed, but not interfered with. As they left the orbit of Earth behind, subtle signs continued to reach them. Faint pulses of energy moved across the planet, fading slowly as they put distance between themselves and the world. It was almost as if the planet itself was bidding them farewell, acknowledging their respect and allowing them to leave safely. Months passed as they traveled through space. News of their expedition had reached the Galactic Council, and anticipation built across star systems. But when the crew began to report what they had witnessed, skepticism arose. Many found the story incredible, almost unbelievable. How could a planet be alive? How could a species that had disappeared centuries ago still protect and monitor its home with such intelligence? The crew did not mind. They knew the truth. Earth had proven itself extraordinary, and humans had left a legacy that transcended time, distance, and expectation. Their message was simple but powerful. Respect life, protect what matters, and understand the strength of restraint. As reports and observations were shared, historians and scholars began to piece together the significance. Humans had not abandoned their home. They had elevated it, transformed it into a living system, and ensured that any who approached would understand the value of patience and respect. The planet itself was a testament to the intelligence and wisdom of a species that had once walked among the stars. the galaxy began to change in subtle ways. Many civilizations started to rethink how they interacted with planets, ecosystems, and species. They considered the long-term impact of their actions and realized that the story of humans and Earth was more than history. It was a lesson in responsibility. Meanwhile, the crew continued their work, carefully analyzing every data point from their expedition. They discovered patterns that suggested humans had anticipated observers like them. Energy pulses, structures, and signals seemed deliberately designed to test curiosity, caution, and respect. Earth had not just been preserved, it had been prepared for those who would eventually seek it. The most striking discovery came when analyzing the rising structures beneath the surface. They were not just mechanical or architectural. They appeared to be adaptive systems. They could respond to changes in the environment, adjust energy flows, and communicate subtly across vast distances. Humanity had created not just machines, but intelligent systems capable of monitoring, learning, and protecting. One scientist remarked, "Humans didn't just leave a warning, they left a living, evolving system that continues to function centuries later. That is genius. That is foresight." The captain added, "And it is a responsibility for us to honor that genius. We must tell the story accurately, without exaggeration, without greed, and without disturbing what remains. Humanity taught us a lesson, and it is our duty to carry it forward." As the crew reflected, the question of human presence remained. Were there still humans somewhere hidden among the stars, or had they truly chosen to vanish, leaving only their home and their legacy behind? The crew did not know, and perhaps they would never know. But they understood something more important. The presence of humanity was felt, not just in bodies or cities, but in the careful design of Earth itself. One night, as the ship drifted silently through a distant star system, the captain called a meeting. "We've learned something extraordinary. Humanity may no longer walk their planet, but their wisdom continues to live. Earth is alive, aware, and fully protected. Our duty is to share this knowledge responsibly." To honor it, the crew agreed. Their reports would focus on lessons, discoveries, and respect, not on exploitation. They understood that the story of humans and Earth was not one of conquest, but of enduring intelligence, foresight, and restraint. As the ship approached the edge of the Sol system, a final pulse from Earth reached them. It was subtle but unmistakable, almost like a heartbeat carried across the void of space. The crew recorded it silently, knowing that it was a final acknowledgement from the planet they had witnessed. Earth had watched them, understood them, and allowed them to depart. It was a moment of closure, but also of reflection. Humanity had built a legacy that would endure long after empires rose and fell. They had demonstrated that true strength lay not in domination, but in wisdom, planning, and respect for life. Earth had been preserved, protected, and elevated by the foresight of those who once lived upon it. Returning to the Galactic Council, the crew shared their findings. Initially met with disbelief, the reports gradually convinced scholars, historians, and leaders. Evidence, patterns, and data confirmed what they had observed. Humans had left behind a world that was alive, intelligent, and self-sustaining. Their home had been preserved, untouched, and revered across centuries. The story spread across the galaxy. Earth became a symbol of wisdom, restraint, and foresight. Artists, scientists, and leaders began to study its design, its signals, and its systems, not for exploitation, but for understanding. Humans, though gone, had created a living lesson that would guide civilizations for generations. The crew of the Seeker's Flame continued to monitor Earth from afar. They knew that some mysteries would never be solved, but they had witnessed enough to understand the depth of humanity's foresight. The planet itself was a message: protect what matters, respect life, and use intelligence responsibly. In the end, Earth remained untouched not because it was forgotten, but because it had been carefully safeguarded. Humans had vanished from sight, but their presence was felt in every pulse, every signal, every intelligent system they had left behind. The galaxy had learned that power was not measured by conquest, but by wisdom, patience, and respect. As the stars stretched out before the crew, they understood that their mission was complete. They had witnessed the guardianship of Earth, observed the intelligence of its systems, and carried back knowledge that would inspire and guide countless civilizations. Earth was alive, eternal, and untouchable. Humanity's legacy endured, not in structures or empires, but in wisdom, foresight, and the quiet strength of restraint. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and the story of Earth and its guardians would be told for generations to come. And somewhere, beneath the forests, oceans, and mountains of the planet, the systems continued their watch. Humanity had vanished from sight, but Earth remained alive, aware, and ready. Its lesson was clear: respect life, protect what matters, and honor the wisdom of those who came before. The eternal silence of Earth was not emptiness. It was a statement, a promise, a testament. Humanity had left, yet their presence was everywhere, woven into the planet itself. Any who approached would learn the same lesson. Strength lies not in domination, but in restraint, foresight, and care. And in that quiet, eternal vigilance, Earth remained sacred, untouched, and alive.